This episode of Couch Potatoes Unite! Is sponsored by Blue Bridge Games. For the games and gifts you won't find anywhere else, head to Grand Rapids, Michigan's friendliest local game store, Blue Bridge Games. Blue Bridge Games carries an extensive line of board games, card games, role-playing tabletop games, Magic the Gathering, and more. Stop into their storefront on East Fulton or shop with them online at bluebridgegames.com.
You say you want to watch a drama. You say you want to watch a comedy. Well, you can watch it with your mama. Or you can watch it with your daddy.
You'll even sit and watch it with your middle schooler. So you can come and talk around a water cooler. We're watching all day and all night.
Couch Potatoes Unite. Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite. Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Which is based on a blog of the same name because, Saul Goodman, we are who we are. I'm the blogger in question and the self-styled chief couch potato. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU! Hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panelists and I live lives behind our podcast, episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the website or the podcast via iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Amazon Music, basically wherever you get your podcasts to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including but not limited to Stranger Things, iZombie, The Good Place, Game of Thrones, American Horror Story, Grace and Frankie, Mr. Robot, Charmed, Riverdale, Altered Carbon, The Orville, Outlander, Westworld, Fuller House, Schitt's Creek, and Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Plus new episodes are in the works, including revisits for The 100, Supernatural, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, This Is Us. The DCTU series panel will reflect upon Season 4 of Black Lightning. We'll be launching new panels covering Big Little Lies, Call the Midwife, The Animaniacs, Killing Eve, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, American Gods, Grey's Anatomy, Cobra Kai, Peaky Blinders, and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll travel through time and experience all sorts of identities with Quantum Leap. We'll thank the Golden Girls for being friends. We'll cry Bazinga for Big Bang Theory. We'll dive deep into the fantasy world of the magicians. We'll navigate the witty political satire of Parks and Recreation. We'll become psychos for Psych. We'll go where everybody knows your name with Cheers. And we hope you'll be listening when we talk about Frasier. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from bunkers, comedy shows, Comic-Cons, and game stores. Plus, we're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff. It's really true. Because of post-pandemic things. So make sure you like or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or subscribe to the website, our YouTube channel, our Apple iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. In the meantime, if you don't hear a show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of the outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback, open and honest feedback. Don't play the master chess games like, say, a Gus Fring. Straight talk works as well for us as it does for Mike Ehrmantraut. Today, our Breaking Better series panel is back around the virtual water cooler and continuing our Looking Back to Look Forward Breaking Better series. In fact, this is the 5th chapter in this multi-part series in which we're exploring all shows in one multi-show universe, which is specifically the entire universe spawned by the show Breaking Bad. Today, in our 5th discussion, we're looking forward, in a manner of speaking, to the middle 2 of the available seasons of the prequel series spun off of one of the most critically acclaimed and popularly watched dramas of all time, and therefore producing our series progressing today. In part 5 of our series, we're discussing seasons 3 and 4 of Better Call Saul, which aired from April 10 to June 19, 2017, and from August 6 to October 8, 2018, respectively, each with a total of 10 episodes. We've already discussed seasons 1 through 3 of Breaking Bad in the first episode, seasons 4 through 5 of Breaking Bad in the second, the sequel film El Camino in the third, and the first 2 seasons of Better Call Saul in the 4th episode of our series. And then each subsequent episode in our CPU podcast universe around these shows will progress through remaining seasons of Better Call Saul. In addition, if you're not already aware, you should know that from time to time your chief couch potato and main moderator, that's me, needs a break, particularly when I think others are more passionate about the show we're discussing at the moment. Case in point, today's episode, I'm not here to moderate it. Rather, frequent panelist Kyle returns to the moderating microphone for this series. He's currently our 5th most involved panelist and is super ready to continue talking about this, his most favorite show on the air currently and possibly of all time, which is why Kyle and I have split moderation duties for this Breaking Better series. In this episode, Kyle is rejoined by our Breaking Better cadre of panelists, namely Nick, Hillary, Julianne, Nate, and of course me, kicking back as a panelist myself. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome back Kyle to the moderating microphone. Take it away, Kyle!
Thanks for the lovely introduction, Kylie.
You're welcome.
So, seasons 3 and 4 of Better Call Saul focus on the showdown between Jimmy and Chuck and the fallout it leaves on both their lives and those around them, as well as Mike's introduction to Gustavo Fring, the criminal mastermind he will come to work for. We also get more of Nacho Varga and his plight, being caught in the middle of the Cold War between Fring and the Salamancas. So we're going to do the usual CPU character question to rate everyone's interest in these 2 seasons. Whoever wants to go first.
You get to read it first.
I was like, don't you have to read the
them first. Sorry. Force of habit.
Oh boy.
Introduce yourself and how would you rate your interest? You love it. You're all in to see the transformation of the criminal lawyer we've all come to know in Breaking Bad. You embrace every corner of this world, from the personal, legal, into criminal. After all, the ends justify the means, like Jimmy McGill, the once and future Saul Goodman. You watch it because you're drawn to the criminal underbelly of Albuquerque. You understand its inner workings better than most. Although it may repel you at first, you find yourself repeatedly drawn back into the Albuquerque drug trade, like Mike Ehrmantraut. You watch it for the legal side. You're invested in the legal back and forth, and have no interest in the morally questionable characters who exist outside the courtroom. You believe in Jimmy McGill, even if you don't fully trust him to do the right thing, like Kim Wexler and Howard Hamlin. You watch it for the Breaking Bad connections. The world is a chessboard, and you're quietly watching it from the shadows to see how the pieces come together to best suit your purposes, like Gustavo Fring. You only watch it because you feel like you have to. You don't particularly enjoy it, but you feel like you're trapped, for better or worse. This is the world you're invested in, like Nacho Varga. You hate it. You have no respect for Slip and Jimmy and his phony law degree. You'd do anything to see him disbarred and out of your life. After all, you can't stomach watching it because of the exposure to electricity burning your skin, like Charles Chuck McGill.
Now who would like to start?
I guess I'll just go, since he full force looked directly at me initially before reading the things. I am Hillary.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi. Hi, and I am the moderator's wife, and also the co-moderator / podcast owner is my sister.
Smooth.
I am. Thank you for pointing it out. I'm going to say that I said initially before that I was Jimmy / Saul. That's not going to change, and honestly, if I said anything else, I just don't even know what would happen, just because Kyle loves it so much. I think he might have an aneurysm or something if I said he's very passionate about the show. And honestly, I can see all of the reasons why. I just love, again, I think I said this in the last episode, I just love the world surrounding Breaking Bad, and I love all of the storyline building up to it. And one of the biggest things I love when I'm watching TV is all the character development, and the show just continues to delve very deeply into these characters. So we'll talk about that more, but yes, I still really love it with seasons 3 and 4. So I am Jimmy / Saul.
Welcome back, Hillary.
I can go next. I'm Nick.
Hi, Nick.
And I am Slippin' Jimmy there. I just really enjoy this show. I'm enjoying watching Jimmy become Saul and his relationships, and even the characters that aren't from Breaking Bad, like Kim and Chuck. I want more of them, even the little bits we get of Chuck in season 4, since he's not around so much after season 3. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this show.
Welcome back, Nick.
I'm Julianne.
Hi, Julianne.
Hey, so I'm pretty sure I said
Jimmy/Saul last time. And I would say, yes, Jimmy/Saul this time, too. Based on these descriptions, I would also add Mike in there. I know, it's kind of 3 characters, but I'm going to roll with it. I love this world. I love what's being created. I love that I know where, Jimmy ends up going, but at the same time, I still have this intrigue of like, but will he? Won't he? So I think that keeps me going, and I think that the show just keeps getting better. So I'm all here for it.
Welcome back, Julianne.
Thanks.
You can say it too, Kyle.
Kyle's feelings are known. Stoic silence after everybody's introduction. Just what we need. I'll go next.
I think you have to.
I'm Nate.
Hi, Nate.
And yes, hello. And I am Jimmy, because there isn't a level above Jimmy. I like everything, just the character development, the stories, and kind of touch on what Jewel said. It's like, what's going to happen, but the whole time you're just like, how's it going to happen? And you get a few teases here and there, and you're like, oh. It's interesting to watch the journey of the character progress.
Welcome back, Nate. And I get to go before the moderator because I'm not moderating, and that's tradition, I guess. And as I mentioned, my name is Kylie, and last time I think I was Mike because I was the only one who was not Jimmy, and I think Mike was still second. And I think I'm going to pick 3. I'm going to pull a Kristen, and I'm going to pick 3. I will add Jimmy this time, but only in part, because I am all in to see the transformation of the criminal lawyer we've all come to know. I'm still Mike, because I think that probably most encapsulates my feeling. But I'm now going to add Gus, because I am deeply watching it for the Breaking Bad connections now at this point. That's what I'm most invested in. Also, Gus remains my favorite character from both shows. I can't help it. I don't know. It seems wrong that I like him the best, but I do like him the best. And I'm quietly watching from the shadows to see how the pieces come together. I like that. So I'm all 3 of them. And I'm here to stay.
Thanks, Kylie. And it's weird going last, but okay. I'm Kyle. I'm moderating, obviously, and I absolutely am obsessed with this show, as people have already mentioned. I became obsessed with Breaking Bad as it aired, and Saul was my favorite character. So I'm definitely Jimmy, always going to be. Although I love every single aspect of this show. I think it's brilliant. And it just gets better with every season as they ramp it up.
Shocking. Shocking.
Wait.
Somebody should have said spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert!
So where we left off in season 2 is Chuck had made a confession tape of Jimmy as he ranted about how he switched the numbers and messed up Chuck's case. Jimmy was pretty smug about it, knowing, thinking, there's no way anybody's ever going to know, because obviously Chuck played up his illness. So the big cliffhanger was we were wondering how this would play out and how the battle between the brothers would go. And that's where the season starts. So does everyone want to start in with their initial thoughts? Okay, then I'll start with the big one then. How did everyone feel about Gus being reintroduced? Because that's the big talking point this season, really.
I mean, I keep being frustrated Gus gets introduced in the 3rd season of every show, because, he just needs to be everywhere all the time. But man, that's such an exciting introduction.
Yeah, I knew it was coming. Everybody foreshadowed it for me. Netflix foreshadowed it for me, because it's the symbol on at least the Chromecast's version of Better Call Saul's title card, and I was very excited by it. He remains my favorite character. The guy doesn't waver. He is an awesome actor. He's in a lot of stuff, but probably as this character, he shines the brightest, and to have more of him in this show, it elevated it for me a little bit. It made it more exciting, because he's so exciting when he comes on. He's so quietly menacing and super intelligent, and all of the scenes between him and Mike were my favorite, hands down.
He's scary intuitive. And I'm a pretty intuitive person, and it's just kind of fascinating to watch him. I mean, he's essentially a sociopath, but it's still fascinating to watch him process and know what people are thinking and how they're going to respond. I mean, we can go back to the whole finding out, how Jimmy and Chuck react to things, but one of my favorite moments of these seasons is when he immediately picks up on the fact that Nacho gave Hector the pills that were doctored.
Yes.
And just in one glance, in one look, and he has the entire thing figured out in his mind. That's probably the big high of season 3 for me.
My honest reaction was, how the hell did you figure that out in 30 seconds? I know he's brilliant, but I still had that question. Like, how did you glean that just by looking at Nacho?
Well, he dropped the bottle of pills. They spilled out. He didn't pick them all up, and then he handed the paramedics a full bottle of pills.
Well, we saw that. I just was,
I mean, he's just that observant.
Yeah, I think Gus saw that, too.
Yeah, it was meant to be us all seeing it together. You're seeing it come to fruition,
And at this point, he's so iconic. I mean, in the episode where Mike's following the tracker, just when you don't even see him, he just follows the tracker to Los Pollos Hermanos. And there's, like, chills. It's become that iconic to people that watch Breaking Bad.
Well, yeah, I just loved, again, so we've talked many times about, like, the cinematography and the camera work and everything. Just the pan of the restaurant, I was just like, dope.
what do you call that? What do you call that? Pulley shot where it was like this and the sign appears, and I was like, oh, that was not a good one.
Because I mean, it's like at this point you're at the party, you're having a good time, and then who walks in but the most popular kid at school, and you're not at that party. You're the most popular kid at school, and you are marking out.
Leave it in. This is not a family show.
Apple does not like the word. I'm sorry.
It is the High School Musical of our generation.
My feelings exactly.
What's
watching
happening?
this season.
Well, and I just love, like, the first time we see him, it's when Mike sends Jimmy in
to observe.
Like, see and so, like, Jimmy's doing all this hilarious stuff, like checking the trashes, and then the whole time, Gus is in the background.
He's blurred.
Yeah, he's like a shark from Jaws. Like, you see him, but you don't see him, and it's like your emotions are building up, and you know he's there.
You're like, yes!
I love it, too, because he just seems like he's sweeping very nonchalantly. Like, almost like he kind of knows what's going on. He's just making himself more present in that moment. Yeah. Oh, my God. And also, like, Jimmy is terrible at a stakeout. Could you have looked more suspicious?
As slick as he is not the stakeout type.
No.
Yeah, like with Gus, they might as well have had like David Attenborough just be like, "You look now, and it's called circles, Jimmy." No,
that took a turn.
Right, so essentially, season 3 is about 3 big conflicts. Like you have Jimmy and Chuck, Hector and Nacho, and then Mike and Gus, which starts out as a conflict, remember, before they start to work, as he's trying to figure out who's tailing him. So, like, which one of these 3 plot lines were you most invested in?
Hands down for me, it was Mike and Gus, because it was everything in Breaking Bad kind of really starting with them and how, they become aware of each other and they're both very intelligent men with both very practical approaches, but the approaches are different enough. And the level of mutual respect that they show each other and that they're able to convey to each other, which of course carries through to the other series. That's what you saw in the other series, so they start it here. That to me, it's almost Shakespearean when they talk. It's fun dialogue. It's really good acting, which isn't to say that I'm not as
Elizabethan.
Yeah, a little bit. It's not that I don't enjoy the other 2, but I really enjoy them particularly, and that conflict and how it resolves itself.
I like them all equally, but for different reasons. And I was really, when you learn that Chuck recorded him and admitted to committing, I mean, I was like, how is Jimmy going to get out of this? I mean, he is a smart man, but I mean, they're both so. The reason why I like watching Jimmy and Chuck, because obviously it's a very it's an interesting relationship. We talked about that a lot in the last episode, but particularly for me, it's like watching this constant battle of wits go back and forth. And I just kept thinking, like, how is he just going to pull out of that? Because they're all so smart. They're in this world of the best in their profession. And that was a pretty big mistake. It was obviously reactive, but geez. So that's why I was like, what is going to happen with this? I don't know if anybody else felt that way, but...
Well, just, like, with a show with, like, all these great villains, and to make Chuck so unlikable, and a lot of the villains likable. I mean, because, like, Chuck is purely playing on Jimmy's emotions, especially when he got him to confess, like, playing up his illness, and all of it just because he's so obsessed with taking away his law degree. So, like, more than anybody else, like, I was rooting to see Chuck fail. And then the fun of this season is just seeing how Jimmy would bring him down.
Chuck is a dick.
The Jimmy-Chuck relationship, that storyline, again, I like them all equally, but that's what I wanted to keep getting back to. I want to see Jimmy become Saul overall with this show, so getting back to that, and I love not only Michael McKean, but Michael McKean as Chuck. And then those moments where, like, Chuck thinks he's winning, or when he starts going up against Howard too, and Howard's like, just Howard's reactions makes me, that's the character that's taken the biggest swing of interest for me from when you first meet him till like,
poor Howard.
Yeah, they portray him on purpose as a very superficial person, but he's a pretty well-rounded character that's well played, and just part of his character is that he's a salesperson, like Jimmy says, and he feels betrayed by Chuck too, which is, I just enjoyed that turn, that moment of, I don't know if that's that has to be season 3, where he's like, I'm paying for it out of my pocket, not the law office, not HHM.
Well, it's what's really interesting to me about that relationship and kind of the circle of the lawyers. I have to wonder, while I'm watching it, how has Chuck become this way, really? You know, he's it seems like he's determined to screw everybody else, particularly Jimmy, to make his point, to show that he's right. I mean, we've talked about, I think Hillary mentioned it in our last talk, that he's probably your textbook narcissist on most counts.
I was just going to say, narcissist!
But there's usually a cause or a spur for that. You know, there's a series of events or a psychological something that really...
I mean, I think the implication is it started with the sibling rivalry, to some degree.
Which,
like, that's the trigger.
I mean, if you look at Chuck's letter, even, when he says that the day their mom brought Jimmy home was the happiest he had ever seen her, and he never saw her smile as much as she did when Jimmy was born. There's almost this underlying thing of, like, he wasn't good enough.
He was jealous from the moment.
Yeah, and so from the start, he kind of pitted Jimmy in this villain role. Like, everyone loves Jimmy more than me. Nobody...
Yeah, exactly. With all the accomplishments and everything, Jimmy the screw-up was still... Papa and Mama loved Jimmy, no matter what. And, you get the impression that, they're like, well, obviously you're a great lawyer, Chuck. Obviously you did well in school, Chuck. That's what you were supposed to do, because that's who you are. But look, Jimmy didn't get summer school for Jimmy this year.
Yeah, and after Chuck put him in the mailroom, and then he, to impress Kim or whatever it is, he decides, I'm going to be a lawyer, and then he does it super quick. Kim was already a law student.
She was in her third year, and he ends up getting his law degree around the same time as
because
her.
Jimmy is smart enough to do it. But again, Chuck's perspective is there should be no way you're capable of this, because I feel that I know you for who you really are, regardless of whether that perception is accurate. But that's still what his mindset is, which is why, like, even during the trial of the whole, when Chuck is on the witness stand, and then that's one of my favorite parts of the whole season, is when Jimmy proves that, or tries to prove that that the illness is in Chuck's head, and B, that he gets him to basically openly start to explore that Chuck really does think that Jimmy is like the villain and he doesn't like him. He's always hated him.
Michael McKean, when he does that courtroom rant where he just spews
That's
his
brilliant acting.
hateful speech for his brother, who's done in years took care of him entirely, but he doesn't see any of that. He just sees slipping Jimmy with a law degree.
Yeah.
The episode is such, like, there's so many big, like, action set pieces, but the scene between the brothers has so much emotion, it hits you in the gut.
Like, I felt the tension in that, watching it, and the look on, when they pan to everybody's facial expression, it was such a good scene.
When Chuck is, giving that rant, it takes him so long to realize the way that people are reacting to it, because he's just stuck in his, he's just stuck in that, and he's thinking, like, I'm really convincing these people, telling them exactly how I feel about Jimmy, and then it just completely turns on him. And
he thinks he's dropping these epic truth bombs the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, everyone is, like, worse than the first. I mean, even if they're true, necessarily, presentation is everything, and it is not presented well to the character who are watching that with their eyeballs in that universe. We love it. Like, we think it's great cinema, great television, but if you were in there, you'd just be like, what is happening?
Especially for, like, Howard, who's essentially been enabling him, and kind of didn't realize that he's enabling this Ahab-like quest, like...
That's a brilliant comparison!
Yeah, well, because it's like Chuck thinks that this one thing, getting Jimmy's law degree, is going to fix the fact that he's sick, that his wife left him, that he can't practice law. He has nothing in his life, so he just...
That's why he's a narcissist.
And then, like, poor Howard, because, like, Howard is just like Jimmy. He just wants Chuck's approval, and then he realizes he doesn't matter. He's a means to an end.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that circles back to my point. So thanks for walking through all the circle itself. But then that's, I think, the irony of Chuck is that he positions himself as this can do no wrong, knows the law so well that he would never personally do anything untoward that would make it seem as if he has violated the law or the moral foundations of the law, and yet he doesn't give two craps about the collateral damage that he's causing with his Moby Dick, his white whale, which is to expose in quotes Jimmy for what he is. And so I think that you're right. I agree. The courtroom scene was really, really good, and my favorite, obviously, the climax for that in some ways, even though there was still more to come from there. But I think that was a really interesting character study to think about just how many people Chuck hurt trying to pretend that he was actually the victim.
Yeah, and his reasoning is Jimmy's going to use the law for his own personal vendettas, which is literally what Chuck is doing. Like, he entrapped him into a confession, he hid it, and he tricked him into breaking into his house. Like, all of this is stuff that you would see Saul Goodman do on Breaking Bad, but you're seeing Jimmy do it, or Chuck do it first, but do it for his own higher moral purpose. Yeah. Plus that episode we get Huel, which is...
You had foreshadow that Huel would be important, and now I see why. So.
Well, even just when he takes... it's such perfect... when he takes the battery out of his pocket, at that point, Chuck thinks that he's got all this over on Jimmy, and then of course he's going to pull one of his classic Jimmy moves, and that's what I think is funny, is that ultimately he does end up being smarter no matter how well Chuck knows the law. Jimmy ends up outsmarting him.
But foundationally did that just by inviting his ex-wife, played by Ann Cusack, to be in the courtroom to disturb his balance, his momentum. It really started there. But yeah, the battery was pretty slick.
Well, I just like when Kim says to him out in the hallway, like when they're at the vending machine, and she's like, she's gonna hate you after this, and he's like, and Jimmy's just like, yeah, I know, and then he walks back into the courtroom. Yeah. But he's willing to do it just because he has to do it at that point. He has really no other.
That's almost his superpower. Like, he will debase himself for his plan, and we see him do it multiple times. Like when he was stuck at Davison, Maine, like he has no real ego. Like when you see him as Saul, he's all ego, but really he's willing to drop every last inch of ego and do things nobody else will. And it's just
makes all the old people hate him.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does.
That was
painful.
It's so painful because you want him to become Saul Goodman, and then he's doing his first truly selfish Saul Goodman con, and then he pulls back at the last minute.
Kyle goes, I hate watching this part.
Oh, it's so brutal.
They all love him so much.
Well, he really was doing right by them. He wasn't trying to bilk them or overcharge them. He really was after something, I think, for the pure good of it from where it started, and then, just chucked it all, no pun intended, for the other purpose. And it was brutal. Plus, they were all those little sweet old lady actresses made very sweet old ladies.
Well, the one smoky lady, she was in Orange is the New Black and, buried her husband. It was, her backstory. So, whenever I see her, that's who I think of.
Which lady?
Yeah.
Nick and I were both on that panel.
The one with the one who, she's one of the walkers and she smokes. She has that, smoker's, old lady smoker look to her out of all of them. And she's in Orange is the New Black. She's the one who helps bury the guy in the greenhouse. And says, she's buried, 3 of her husbands.
Oh! I know who you're talking about. Oh, what's her name? On Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, and when she first comes on screen, I'm just like, oh my god, it's a murder lady. It was she was so believable in that role. I've actually pigeonholed her, so if I see her in anything else now, I'm always going to think she did in fact kill 2 of her husbands and bury them in a greenhouse.
It's the one that it's the one that ends up getting herself checked into the psychiatric ward and ends up being roommates with Suzanne, I think.
Yes.
I cannot think of her name, though.
90% sure. It's been a while since I have donned the orange. So.
AKA the New Black. If you haven't, please listen to Couch Potatoes Unite's Orange is the New Black series, which I moderated and Nick was on.
Well, see? How fun. A crossover.
Crossover, plug, internal plug. Anyway, sorry, not to totally detract from Better Call Saul.
Yes, yeah, but those sweet old ladies, they sold it, though. They weren't, Golden Girls level, everything was snarky. They just... that's the thing about this show is even the smallest person, you can almost let's say it's a guy at a counter at a C-store, and he delivers his little part, and it's almost like you remember seeing that guy in a C-store. It's just those little nuances of how well every person acts as if this is their break as an actor, and it's just really phenomenal. Personally.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think the best part about this show is that I enjoy watching every single character. There might be plot points that I am more interested than others at different times, but I thoroughly enjoy everybody that's in this show.
Yeah, when Saul is selling the cell phones to the low-grade criminals, it's I swear I've met some of those low-grade criminals. Like, I have literally drank at the townie bars with these guys. I mean, it's just the casting and the characterizations are just so on point, and that's why coming back to the Chuck meltdown, it's like when they go around the room of every person and you see everybody's reactions, like you get the feeling like you are in that courtroom. The immersion level is so high with just everyone bringing it. It's just...
Since we're talking about side characters and actors, we get a lot of Breaking Bad characters this season and season 4, namely Francesca, Crazy 8, Lydia, Huel, Tyrus, Victor, Ira, Don Eladio, Don Bolsa, the cousins, and Gail. Is there any of you most excited? Any of you are most excited to see or surprised by? Or any of you need a refresher on who they were? Because there was a lot that were hidden cameos in this season that were Breaking Bad characters.
Quick side note, the character on Orange is the New Black to which Nate is referring was Frida, and she's the one who became the hoarder and the one who killed all her husbands. Okay.
There it is. I'm pointing. It's for audio.
Yes. That's it. In answer to your very poignant question about, yes, I was surprised to see Gail.
Same. That's what I was going to say. That was the one that I just, for some reason, was not expecting to see. And I was like,
and he was being his usual weird self.
I'm still a student at this point. For the beard.
With the beard.
But also
I believe
enjoying...
my exact exclamation in the middle of the night, hoping I didn't wake up my wife, was, "Whoa, Gail had a beard?" Like, I was just like whoa!
Was he singing the periodic table song?
Yeah. And the funny thing is, he's filming another show in Albuquerque, and they could just slide him in. He only had a couple days to memorize this song that Vince Gilligan wanted him to sing. And apparently it's the hardest acting thing he's ever done, is doing that and then singing it like it comes natural. But he did such a good job.
That's incredible.
That's awesome.
I mean, his enthusiasm, even when he's talking to Gus then, it's amusing to me.
He's ready to cook that meth. The best meth.
And technically, his scene is the first reference we get to Jesse Pinkman. Because when he's showing him the meth samples, and he says, oh, the top of the class is 66%, but it has contaminants, and the contaminant is his chili powder.
That's funny.
Which you learn in expanded stuff in interviews. So, yes, that was the first reference to Jesse Pinkman. Like, he's out there in Albuquerque making really bad meth, but it's still better than all the rest of the meth.
That one did not register, but that's super cool.
That's what's cool to show, especially the more times you watch it. The more times you circle around, there's things you pick up. I mean, like, I know most people don't even pick up that Domingo with Nacho is Crazy 8, the guy Walt kills, the villain of the first episode of Breaking Bad.
Oh!
I love that.
Can I just say, I can really tell how much Kylie is missed, because I can see the blank stare.
And he's the main character. He's the one, he takes Nacho's job and does the count. Nacho beat the crap out of him for Hector. Like, he's a character now, but he's so passive and different than the big gangster, but we're seeing how he becomes that loudmouth gangster. And
I mean, he looked familiar. This is the guy they dissolve in the tub, right?
This is the one Walt strangles in the basement, who had a couple episodes in Breaking Bad. He was a big part.
Right.
Walt's first murder.
Yeah. They dissolve him in the tub after he strangles him. Yeah.
That's I think what I love too. Is,
The guy dissolved in the tub was his cousin, Emilio.
have you seen that guy?
You guys, man, need to cycle around and watch these as much as me.
You need to watch the funniest.
Nobody needs to watch them as many times as you.
No, but I mean, it's just weird because, like, we know he works for the Salamancas, and it was just natural that he's there, and they don't make a big deal about it. He's there. He's in all these episodes.
So a lot of times we use the word in like a specific other group. We always say that things are very organic. And, like, that is 100% what I love about this universe. Everything is seamless and organic. It's like it is supposed to be there, so it makes you believe in the reality. It's not reality, but it makes you believe in the reality of what you are seeing come together, which is what makes the story and the character development even more persuasive as a viewer.
I think it's cool, too, because sometimes, you know, when that happens, when you see a lot of the same characters in the same universe, it makes it feel really small. But the way that new characters are introduced in this, or new to us, it helps kind of expand that world a little bit more. So I love that inclusion of Crazy 8 before he's kind of really Crazy 8, because I immediately was like, oh, there he is. And then I was like, oh yeah, he is a terrible end.
Yeah, and
a terrible fate ahead of him.
It just makes me more sad for him too with Walt, because when you see him, like, he's like, this loudmouth drug dealer who beats the crap out of Jesse, and so you can justify Walt killing him because he's like, okay, this is a horrible person, but you see him as much more of like a down to earth human, like being brutalized by Hector.
He's just trying to make his way in the drug world.
Yeah.
And the same with like,
He's trying to make it out there,
He's trying to be an honest salesman.
And the same with Francesca. They're receptionists who become Saul Goodman's receptionist. Like, we see her all hopeful and professional. Literally the complete opposite.
I did not
realize
that was
transformation
her.
I love.
Yeah, I did not realize that was her until they did.
Oh my god! Kylie, you need to rewatch it.
Look, I have consumed these in kind of a record space of time. So
I just feel like you probably appreciate it. There's even like moments that are so Vince Gilligan, because like one of the things, and this is like earlier in the when we see Mike kind of staking things out before he eventually leads into Gus. Like we see like in-depth scenes of Mike just doing his like really, true stakeout stuff right before he fully becomes full-on Mike. And there's like moments where it totally reminds me of the X-Files, because he's like sitting there in the window in the dark, and instead of sunflower seeds, he's eating pistachios.
Yep.
But it's in the same wavelength of Mulder, and it makes me happy every time.
see, now that I picked up on.
That's my squeak, and now I'm done.
I mean, we also
you
get
know that
Lydia,
Hillary
too, but
likes
she's
the
acts
X-Files?
very different.
What, Kylie?
I was going to say, did you know, in the vein of, we know Kyle likes Better Call Saul, did you know that Hillary likes the X-Files? Okay.
Some people do. I don't know if everybody does.
Oh, well now they do.
I was saying we also get Lydia, and she's very, very different than we get her. She doesn't have any of her quirks or, like, paranoia, but we've also never seen her actually with Gus until now.
That's true, but I still think she's the worst.
Right, like, and she clearly just is kind of in over her head. I love how Mike just waltzes into Madrigal and starts working there.
He's like, be a security consultant.
Right, he's like, no, I have to be working for you. Like, that's the thing about Mike. He's so 10 steps ahead of everybody else. He's like, you can't just put me on the payroll and I don't do anything. So I just love that whole scene. Is one of my favorites.
Yeah, the whole supercut of him just like driving around in that car, get down.
Can I pivot for a second while we're on the subject of Mike and his 10 steps? So and I don't know if I'm bleeding into season 4, so stop me if I am. That whole progression of him going to the grief group with his daughter-in-law and exposing Henry, who's played by Sean the Demon from The Good Place. I can't think of his real name.
Mark Evan Jackson.
Thank you. All I could think of was that Sean. But anyway, I don't know what that told us per se from the other vantage point other than Mike. I really love Mike too. His 10 steps ahead thought process, how he's naturally but practically and prudently suspicious of people, because in many ways he can see people just as well as Gus can. It goes back to what I said earlier. They have the same practicality and that same way to map things out. They just approach it differently. That was rough. Scene.
Well, no, the funny thing is, like, he sees all that stuff about almost everybody all the time, but he only brought it up because he was, like, prodded and emotional. So, like, how much stuff does he keep in? Like, he sees everything.
And isn't the way that episode starts is just the reaction of what has been said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to leave.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, so the episode starts in the group, and you just are seeing the reaction, and then, as the episode continues, you see how it came to that point. Which I really liked that editing. Was that in 4 also? Okay, sorry, yeah.
That's fine. Since we were talking about side characters that most people didn't notice, I'm guessing none of you noticed Ira, the thief who steals the Hummel, who he is on Breaking Bad. He introduces Todd to them. He owns Venomous Pest Control that they buy.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I forgot that guy.
Nope.
I haven't watched it as many times as you, Greta.
That's why it's fun.
I mean, there's so many Easter eggs. That's why it's super rewatchable. I mean, you can just watch it on the surface for, like how great Michael McKean is and how great Bob Odenkirk are. But then like I said, you cycle around, there's so many other things you pick up on.
Kyle's our personal Albuquerque Easter bunny.
We haven't really mentioned Kim. I mean, her plot in season 3 is almost entirely separate from any of the big ones. Her with Mesa Verde. How did you feel about that? Were you invested at all, or did you just want to get back?
It was just kind of flat. I mean, I think, like, it had that been on its, like, so far removed, you know what I mean? Like a whole, like, just like a 2-week span of that stuff, that would be one thing, but it's like, when you've got, like, Nacho, and you've got Chuck and Jimmy, and Gus, and it's like, oh, and here's this D story, and it just kind of felt flat. Not that it wasn't well written like everything else, it's just, by comparison...
Yeah. I want to like Kim, but I find that the parts that explore Kim by herself and even into season 4, their relationship, leave me the least engaged.
Which I think is the hard part. She's the straight man.
Yeah.
So she doesn't really quite get to shine, but I will say, like, it is... The way they do this show, everything eventually will be important.
Right.
The question is just how and when.
Yeah, why is that stuffed animal in the pool?
Well,
I think it's important to show a lot of these aspects of Kim.
It's a juxtaposition.
But, like, she can't... It's good to see that she's good at her job, and she's determined, and she has things in common with Jimmy, and the things that Jimmy brings out of her. Like, I enjoy all of that, and I do want to see what happens with them and how... Season 5, they move on from that moment, but we don't have to talk about how season 4 ends yet. But like, they definitely drift apart. She's definitely cold to him in times, and then she goes back to him. I don't know. I think it's worth seeing that. I don't find those the least engaging stories, especially in season 4. Nacho's storyline seems to be the most off to the side. Like, it's Gus and Mike, and it's Saul. I don't know. That's to drift away.
But doesn't Nacho's...
Nacho's plot in season 4 is him being a mole for Gus.
Yeah.
It's pretty important.
Yeah, I have to disagree with you, Nick. I think that it
just seems boring.
Oh,
but here's the thing, though.
I disagree.
Maybe you're boring, Nick.
We wouldn't have Breaking Bad
they
without...
like shot Nacho.
Well, here's the thing. And the brilliant... You don't even realize what you're watching when you see it is, but because of that plot with Nacho is the only reason that Jesse and Walt can make meth, because Gus frames the Espinosas for stealing their meth, and then it closes the border to Mexico. So then for the first time, the cartel says, okay, we'll buy meth from other people. So, like, without that whole plot line explains why the drug cartel is buying meth and how Gus got it that way.
That sounds pretty not boring to me.
Just because it explains something doesn't mean it was... I
didn't like him with the cousins, like assaulting the Espinosas.
No.
Oh, see, I actually loved all of the...
Nick likes the wholesome parts of the Breaking Bad.
I do find that the connection to the Breaking Bad universe, I don't even need that.
Oh. Well, I feel the opposite, and also, I love that I really have come to enjoy Nacho as a character, and the fact that it was him that causes, through the medication switcheroo, the stroke that makes Hector wheelchair bound. And watching that whole progression over these 2 seasons, including the few scenes where Gus is inserting himself in the middle of the Salamancas by either basically usurping Nacho because of his knowledge of how he had switched the medication to be his mole, to also, all of these peripheral characters who are either mentioned or appear later, the ones that I did recognize in Breaking Bad. And then you're watching Hector Salamanca become still this force with his dinging bell. The whole introduction of the bell was really fun. Now that's probably season 4 at this point, but I'm sorry. It was not boring. It's not boring. And I
mean, you have to look at it too. It's like a poem. Like, Nacho is Jesse. He's stuck in the same thing. Like, he shouldn't ever have been in this world. He's too sensitive and intelligent to be there. And then you find him being brutalized by Gus and just being used the same way that Walter used Jesse.
Well, and also by Hector. I mean, I kept saying the whole time, even when he was doing Hector's, I was like, oh, Nacho, this is just not going to end well for you, man.
And he was trying to
and I already knew where it was going to end up going with him. Like, of course he's going to want to use it. I mean, Hector's so getting desperate with his back and forth battle of wits going on there between him and Gus.
Which
and I was
really
like,
isn't that
and
much.
to see the disappointment in his dad's face and like, man, I'm like, Nacho, what are you doing, man? Like, but then at the same token, because of the situation he's put himself in, he has no choice. It just starts to spin out of control, which is essentially what also happens to Jesse.
And Hector, it's even less of a wits battle as much as it is he's the guy that says this is the way it's always been done and this is how it's going to still be done, and who are you upshot trying to, I made this cartel. He gives that whole speech before he strokes out. This is me, I did it. It's the Salamancas, we did it. Blah, 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 blah.
But then at the same token, I mean, he is obviously what we learned in Breaking Bad, he's a lot of what creates Gus. Too. So it is still, to me, I see it as also a battle of wits. It's just one that explodes in kind of a different direction.
Loads. Foreshadowing.
It was not intended.
Although we did skip...
Slow
Sorry,
clap.
I'm laughing at Nate's slow clap. He keeps doing shit that people can't see.
It's a theater of the mind.
We keep sliding into season 4 stuff, but we really should cover the end of season 3 at least, which is Chuck burning himself alive.
Yes.
After being
Howard
forced out of
Gordon.
Hamlin, you could blame Howard like Jimmy does, but really it was Jimmy who leaked in a moment of anger, leaked to the insurance company that Chuck is essentially ill and can't function.
Unfit.
Yes.
Unfit, incompetent.
So, how do we feel about? Did you see it come in? Did you think they were going to kill Chuck in season 3, or
No. There are a lot of character deaths throughout this universe, and that was not one that I saw coming, and not in that way.
And not in that way. Like, I maybe would have bought the death, like him being a potential,
Right.
Somebody who dies just because of, that seems to be the way those characters go. But to have it, by burning alive in the house.
Slowly
And
methodically
painfully.
kicking the lantern to your own.
Yes! That was not anticipated, no.
But also, while you're seeing him do that, you're panning to, it's like the height of his illness, because you've seen that he has destroyed the inside of that house, like,
Again.
And made it
but like
ugly.
really bad, like to
Yeah.
its max.
Because
Yeah, I mean,
was
in
trying
the
to
start of
make
the
It is
episode,
wrecked.
he's
in the
trying
start of the
to-
episode, we get the house all beautifully fixed back up, and all the electricity is doing so good, and then we just keep, every time it goes back to him, it's spinning out and spinning out.
He can't, it's all to the electric meter. He's convinced that it's still going. He can't, and he's determined to find whatever is causing that to go, which I'm not even sure it really, really was, but he destroyed it in the end, so before he set the house on fire.
And it's just so symbolic. Like, he got Jimmy's law degree taken away. He rebuilt his house, and he thinks, like, okay, I'm on top of the world. Jimmy's not a lawyer anymore. And yeah, it didn't fix anything. It made things worse.
And I would say it's, when it comes down to it, that is Chuck's fault, Chuck's choices that got him there. It was his stubbornness. I don't think it's Howard or Jimmy's fault. The aspect I really want them to explore, and I don't know if they're going to pivot farther from, is does Jimmy really not care? He's
Well,
so
remember-
blasé to the letter, and he's so more, at the end of season 4, more excited about it working and him getting his law degree. I feel like in a normal show, this would be building to him, like, going to get help and talking through his feelings, but is it just he doesn't?
He's doing what Chuck told him. Chuck told him, why this big show of emotion? Why cry? You're just going to keep doing it. So why bother? And he gave him permission to not care. And so all of season 4, when nobody understands why he's not crying, why he's not reacting, it's because that's the last thing Chuck told him to do, is to stop showing his emotions like that, because Chuck saw them, they were fake, which is, we know isn't true. We know Jimmy cares. We know he loves everyone around him. But he's acting in the way Chuck sees him, because Yeah, and then for Chuck's final words to be with him, in all honesty, I never really cared much about you.
Yeah, that was such a dick move.
Like, that is literally the switch that made Saul Goodman. I don't think he ever would have reached that place. Like, he would have flirted with it, but Kim and them would have pulled him back. And even mad at Chuck, I think he would have wanted his approval. But that moment, it just pretty much gutted Jimmy McGill.
Right.
Almost
just into season 4.
Almost a codependency.
All the extra merriment.
Yeah. I just said it was almost a weird codependency between those two brothers. Like, they needed each other for different reasons. Chuck needed Jimmy to validate what Chuck believed was the case, and Jimmy needed Chuck just his approval and validation, period. And it just was toxic.
So season 4, we see Jimmy without his law degree for like almost the entire season. And I will know that in some of the reviews, a lot of people knocked it for that as their least favorite. How did you feel about that?
I would say that in this season, it was a little bit more laborious when they switched to his side of the story for me. I was still more invested in Gus and Mike and the Salamancas.
The hole in the ground?
Yeah, the hole in the ground's kind of important.
Eventually, yeah.
I think, it was a slower story, I think. It was interesting, it had its points, but yeah, I think with everything else going on, it wasn't the most action-packed part. But on the same side, I dug it because it was kind of like, he wants that law degree now. But you're like, what is he going to do with it when he gets it back? Because he's different now. So it's, again, we're just here watching the tapestry unfold, man.
We're seeing him get his new client base, how it switched from elder care to...
Yeah, that's why I like watching it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, too. I actually didn't mind that he wasn't practicing law, because you knew that he was going to be doing something, and he was going to be doing some sort of scheming and some sort of Saul Goodman plotting. And I think, like, what's more perfect than, like, a cell phone salesman? And
a prepaid cell phone
burner
salesman.
phones, too.
Burner phones, yes.
He's not even mall level.
No.
He's
I kept wondering, maybe it was mentioned and I missed it, because it's possible, but they spend a few minutes talking about how he's stationed at, like, the slowest, deadest store. And so he takes this initiative to go transport these prepaid cell phones into the hub and bub of drug trade activity and other criminal activity. Does corporate not give him a pat on the back for his increase in sales? This was my question.
I did one of that too, honestly. I guess it was my retail life that I've had, where I'm just like, he got no award?
What? Come on! That store saw like a 2,000%
Yeah, as
turnaround.
someone who's been in retail like for forever, they really
They just wanted you to sell more than what you sold the last day. No
Yeah.
more. Oh, you did more?
Yeah.
Do more than that.
It's something like made on like print shop, you know?
That's like
It's
100%.
like a fake achievement thing, and it's just printed out for like doing great at sales.
Yes! That happens. They send you a thing in an email that you can just print out yourself.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. At least that is what he deserved.
Like, it's not even a joke.
Be worrying about Hillary's side job?
We might be. We won't mention where Hillary
Oh,
works.
guys, sorry. I started selling burner phones.
Oh, wow.
I will say, like, this is an instance where I kind of wish I had seen the season streaming, because when you watch the fourth season week to week, after waiting forever for the season to air, the cell phone stuff did feel like a drudge at first. But when you see it all together and you realize that he's building his client base and he's building the name Saul Goodman on the streets, it works a lot better.
I mean, him in the tracksuit, the pinata episode, that's all good stuff.
Yes.
The tracksuits were paramount.
Paramount Plus.
He always dresses
And
the
he was
part.
still wearing the shoes that he bought when he was trying to impress the old lady, the mall walk-in shoes.
Yeah.
Just funny.
After going through all his ridiculous Saul Goodman outfits that he had bought for his Davis and Maine scheme.
Yeah, the Kings
Well, we
of
know
Comedy.
he's going to wear those again.
Yeah. They were an investment that will be returned on in the future.
Yes.
Especially a look like that is so timeless that you can just wear it
Right.
forever.
So timelessly fleshy.
You could wear it to a funeral.
But yeah, we're seeing
Somebody's
more and more of
favorite.
the Breaking Bad world come together because it is cool that we got to watch, like, how we're getting to watch Gus's, where Walter and
The meth lab.
Yes, God.
Well, and we also learned that Gus, Hector could have made a full recovery almost.
Yeah.
In a very Gustavo Fring manner, cuts off his treatment right when he realizes that he is Hector trapped in a disabled body.
Brutal. That is just brutal, man.
You're so genius, man.
That was cold.
Yes.
That was stone cold.
Yep.
Well, and that monologue
It's a vendetta, man.
He just wants Hector alive enough to see what he's able to do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's just cruel.
And that monologue he gives when it's just him and Hector in the hospital, and he tells him about how when he was 7 growing up in Chile, and it's the most information we get about him. And it's my favorite Gus, because he is so scary in that moment, is telling this story. I mean, he was 7 and he was already merciless with this animal just because it ate his fruit. And so you start to wonder, because in Breaking Bad, we start to think he was this way because of the way Max getting killed. But he was already like that, which in my opinion, it makes him 100 times more scary.
Yeah, I think that legitimized his sociopath status, which Hillary mentioned earlier. I think we were wondering it, or maybe explaining it away a little bit in Breaking Bad, but here it was like, no, that's what happened. That's what it is.
Yeah, there's no doubt of it. It's just, for him, obviously, with his partner in Breaking Bad, I mean, that's just kind of what just tips him right over the edge into... Then there's no holding it back anymore. It is what it is.
You open the floodgates.
Yes. But yes, that was a really good scene. You're right.
Since we're talking about Hector, we also get the Lalo Salamanca and the Bell history. So how did you feel about Lalo and how he compares to the other Salamancas?
Is he somebody that's mentioned later?
He's the big bad. He's the one mentioned in the first episode with Saul on Breaking Bad. He's the end villain of Better Call Saul. Because remember, when we first see Saul, he thinks Lalo's men have kidnapped him when it's Walter and Jesse. And he says, "Did Lalo send you? It wasn't me, it was Ignacio."
Right, you talked about this before.
Yes, so now we're seeing the start of that backstory.
All the light bulbs are going off.
So we have Ignacio, we have Nacho, we know what he did. He paralyzed Hector. And Saul is terrified that Lalo knows, and Lalo thinks he's involved. Lalo was always planned to be the boogeyman of Breaking Bad that would eventually get introduced, and Vince Gilligan couldn't figure out how to do him justice, and so he kept pushing it off. So, what were your impressions of Lalo?
I mean, what a charismatic guy.
I was like, dude, look at the way he walks into Gus's office at Los Pollos Hermanos, and he just sits down there, and he's like... Dude, there's some good chicken here. He's just talking, he's just talking to them, and I'm like, oh my god, that's a Salamanca I can get behind.
That makes him all the more terrifying.
Yeah, he's more terrifying at that chicken scene.
You look at Hector Salamanca and you're like, that guy looks like a dick.
Right?
Party, I would not go engage with him. But this guy, he looks like he's probably got some great stories. And so you hear all these great stories, and then he invites you out to his boat, and then you go to an island and you're hunted as human prey. That's what you're going to get with this guy.
That is that guy.
It's so charming before you get to the boat.
Right.
Right, yeah. That's the thing, is right now we're at the party and we're like, that guy looks charming. And then season 5, come to my island.
Yeah, he's charming, but he's definitely... I thought he was still off-putting. You're too...
Yes, he is off-putting, for sure.
Yes.
So, yeah. Yeah, that guy.
I mean, so again, another battle of wits, because then it ends up being him and Mike, which is...
my god. That's probably my favorite episode of the season, when you're talking about when he was tailing him.
Yeah.
Yes. Just all of the things. Yes, just all of the things. Well, even when he finds the one dude, what's his name?
Werner Ziegler.
And then he finds him, and then he calls him, and he's talking to him, and then Mike comes, and he's like, and he's listening to him on the other end, and he's like, oh, Michael? And he's just like,
Michael, is that you?
And Mike is already like, freaking damn it. And just, that whole interlude is quite entertaining.
I think too, and I think it's from that episode where Lalo is trying to gather this information about where this German engineer has gone, and he comes across the guy in the office, and he like climbs up into the ceiling and then just like drops down from the tile. I like audibly gasped because it was.
Well, they already implied that he could do that because he's at Gus's, where the meth lab is going to be. And so he's like staking that out and he's watching them, and it's already implied because Mike basically knows like somebody is here, and so they all go out and try to find him and everything. But it's like he's like some sort of ninja.
I mean, and that goes to show you the trouble. Like as far as he knows, nothing's going on at that chicken place. He's like Mike. He's just super diligent. He doesn't even, like, he's a dog chasing a car. He doesn't know what it is, but he knows it's something he can bite into. Like, he's willing to kill that travel wire guy, and he doesn't even know what any of this is about.
Right.
Geez, Kyle, you become so literary when you're talking about the Better Call Saul.
Sorry.
It's great.
In all fairness, he's like this all the time. But the more intense he is about it, like, he could wax on about Daredevil the same exact way. I'm just using that as another... He's like this a lot.
Nick and I are laughing because we were also on the Marvel's Defender series with Kyle, and if you didn't already know, he loves Daredevil. It is his favorite. It is maybe not as much as Better Call Saul, or maybe they're just two different things on the top.
Two different things on the top.
There you go. But no, that was a compliment. You're just like, this is what happens.
No, it's like super helpful. I have an awful memory. Like, I just watched this. I have a terrible memory, so it's super helpful. It really is.
It is helpful, not to mention the fact that there is, even though some of the scenes are slow, they are clearly like packed. There's tons.
They're layered.
Yeah.
So if you're missing some of the layers, of course, you're going to sit back and watch and be like, oh, maybe I'm not as invested in this as I am in Breaking Bad. But you are, you just don't know it yet.
It's a real Matrix sitch.
Well, and I think I said this in a Breaking
Except it ends way better than The Matrix.
That's a low bar.
Well, I think I said it in the Breaking Bad podcast too, but like this show holds a ton of rewatch value for that reason. I'm now past. I've watched the first 3 seasons of Better Call Saul now twice, and like that's definitely paid off. So now I'm in the territory of having watched it once. So I'm already watching knowing, okay, there's things that are passing me by here I'm not totally getting, but I will watch this again, and I will pick up on it again. So I just love that. Gosh, it's like such an investment to watch a show in general, and to watch something for the first time and already know you want to rewatch it again. It just speaks volumes.
Well, right, and how many times do you watch something and you're like, I've gotten I've definitely gotten what I need out of this. I'm probably not going to revisit it.
Well, this is a show you can't. There's so many shows now that it's hard to watch without your phone in your hand at the same time. And with the show like this, the only time you're picking your phone up is like IMDb. Was this person in Breaking Bad too? Yeah. Oh, okay. Like you're using it to enhance that experience. You're not scrolling through some social media stuff.
And like you don't think you need the backstory on Hector's bell, but when you find out he got it after like mass murdering a hotel full of people, and now every time I watch Breaking Bad and it zooms in on that stupid bell, that's all I picture is like Hector killing a bunch of people, and Lalo thinking it's hilarious, so he kept the bell.
Right.
Same old Hector. He just wants to kill everyone.
Yes, that's what he says to Nacho.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, when he walks
same old Hector.
Yeah.
He's gotta kill everybody.
Yeah. He tells Nacho to leave the room. He tells Nacho to leave the room, and they're kibitzing all by themselves. And then the camera pans to Nacho, watching them talk, not being able to hear anything. And then out comes Lalo, and he says that exact, what he just said.
That guy.
I know.
Well, and just Lalo ends up being like my favorite villain, even more than Gus, even just right away. And I love that. And I thought was really interesting is because like the character of Mike and even Saul on Breaking Bad, they let the actor come up with everything for the character. They let him come up with his personality, how he looks. And so he decided when he was cast that he wanted Lalo to be a mixture of Saul Goodman, where he's that off-putting, weird, charming, Mike with his diligence, but then able to turn it off and become like the cousins, which is like when he kills the travel wire guy. But then also like wrapped up, he wanted him to look like Errol Flynn, like this kind of traditional dashing guy that people might trust. And to me, he's scary because you could trust him, and then he could kill you like the cousins would. But with the cousins, you see it coming.
Can I just say too, like when everyone meets the cousins for the first time, I still like watching everybody's reactions with that too. They're all looking at them like because they're standing there over Hector in the hospital room, like Nacho and the other dude are just like, okay.
Remind me, who is the father of the cousins? Do we know?
We never see.
Oh, okay. How many Salamancas are there? That's my next question.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. I was thinking, like, I wonder how they're all connected. And if there's more, well, gosh, I'm sure there's more family members, but, you know, if they end up popping up in a significant way. That's a brutal clan.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah. And I would love to see Lalo with Tuco.
Yeah. Is that coming?
Not in season 5 anyway, but I would hope that they do it.
Man, that would be fun. Tuco is nuts.
What? He's so chill.
Yeah, right.
He loves his abuela.
He does love his abuela.
He does love his abuela.
Don't call her a biznatch. And then the other thing this season was Jimmy trying to get his law degree back after being deemed insincere. Did you see that playing out the way it did?
Man. Yeah, he was such a smarmy douche. The first, like, when he sits down with, go sand crabs, like, it's so disingenuous that you're like, man, this can't be right. He's not going to squeak one out here, is he? When he doesn't, you can't wait to see what he's got up his sleeve now, because his first go round didn't work, but so bad. Like, it was like him doing an impression of himself. That's how I felt.
What really struck me too is like the anger that he unleashes on Kim after that happens. She's been there to support him the whole time, despite knowing his, you know, some of his slimy ways. And, you know, there he is sort of, you know, kind of yelling at her and sort of blaming her for what's happened. And yeah.
She sums it up pretty well. You committed a felony and I was there. She has always had his back, and you can see that the switch has been flipped. I don't think he cares if they have their office together anymore. Basically, she said it wasn't going to happen, and now he is done and is moving on.
Right.
Well, and it's the attachment to what triggers that is. She says it's because you didn't talk about Chuck. That's what sets him off.
Yeah. Because she calls him out after he unleashes on her, which in her position, I probably would have done the same thing. Okay. I've been trying to be supportive, but let me just give it to you straight. This is the reason why.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So now, what are you going to do about it? And then that's one of the moments that, I'm like, okay. And I totally understand why, but yeah, he kind of ends up, he's being relatively immature about it all.
I don't know that I had any particular reaction other than it was going back to that organic word. It just seemed like that was the natural flow of what was going to happen. So I guess I wasn't necessarily surprised or not surprised as much as, this seems legit.
I wouldn't say surprised, just because over these 4 seasons, there were so many times where it was like, oh, we're going to start seeing him as Saul, and the setbacks that come in as he is Saul, and that it's just 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or maybe even further. So that it wasn't a surprise when he's like, says he's going to change his name to Saul, and how he says, Saul Goodman to Kim at the very end, that button, and her just silently watching him almost skip away. Like, that was almost abrupt, like, oh, he's Saul now. We are there. And I didn't know if they finally were going to give that to us.
Yeah, and essentially, really, it's kind of Kim that sets him there, because it's like 3 cons in a row where she's essentially okay with him breaking the law. We have him and her with Huel, then them messing with the Mesa Verde plans, and then her helping him con all these lawyers into giving him his law degree back. Like, she pretty much just gave him the complete go-ahead that she supports him. And like the last part of him always trying to impress her, like, with him being a moral lawyer is gone. And he knows they're never going to be Wexler McGill.
Yeah, she was trying to make it... The whole Huel thing was he was going to bring that cop down in order to get... And she righted the course there, but it was still breaking the law with the con, and and it just kept going from there.
Yeah.
And I love that the season 4 finale when he's giving his speech in court, and she thinks he's finally had a breakthrough about Chuck. and she's getting emotional in the courtroom. And then, like, he just drops that mask as soon as he comes out, and she's, like, completely horrified.
Yeah, that's that moment where she's...
It's such a good way to end the season with him just, it's Saul Goodman, and just freezing, like, on her, like, I don't even know this person.
Which is interesting because, you know, she has seen the real him. And it's one of those moments where I'm like, you know, I don't think she should be too surprised. That's where I had trouble with Kim's character this season. I had a really hard time figuring out, like, her motivations a lot of the time, just apart from caring for Jimmy. You know, like, she's worked really hard to get where she's at, and I understand how things start to kind of, like, fall apart a little bit with Mesa Verde, and she's doing the pro bono work and all of that, but I don't know, I started to kind of grow a little cold on Kim in this season, just because I was not fully there with her, I guess. I don't know.
Here's where I landed on her this season. We learned that she wanted to be Atticus Finch previously in season 3 when she broke her arm, and that she wanted to do good. And then as we see her drop her Mesa Verde stuff to represent underprivileged people, it almost became like the ends justify the means. Like, I'm doing more good in the world by essentially taking the Jimmy way out, by cutting corners and doing these things. So it's like, okay, I can pull this scam on Mesa Verde because it makes it easier and gives me more money and more time to help people that really need it, so I can just let it slide and look past it.
She's like, I'm carbon neutral now. Like,
yeah. Also, my perception of her is that she, at least with her relationship with Jimmy right now, and I'm not 100% where it's going, but I think part of her, even though she's aware of Jimmy and his faults, she still sees the good Jimmy, and she is still hopeful of that side of him in spite of the other things. And so I think that is just like that kind of denial-esque, just because she has, I mean, they've been with each other. Oh, he knows things that are coming, so I haven't watched it.
I raised my hand because I think you're right to a point, but my perception was, it's kind of building off of Kyle's point. Her life, she was turning. Now, she might have been adopting some of Jimmy's tricks and attitudes as she was doing it, but her life was taking a dramatic turn. And the show did a very deliberate episode and a very deliberate sequence in which you see Jimmy and Kim living entirely separate lives where they're just ships in the night. They're in the bathroom brushing their teeth together, then they're brushing their teeth one after the other. You know, they're eating together, then they're not. I think she sees the good in him still, but that's because she's turned a blind eye for a while because she's been so self-focused on cultivating her own path, which is this sort of, Atticus Finch meets con artist in the courtroom, and while setting herself up, because she goes to that other law firm where Dennis Boutsikaris is the lead partner, to set up a banking practice, so that there's staff enough to service Mesa Verde. She's still doing right, except for when she shouts at Paige or whatever her name is. She does right by Mesa Verde the whole time, but she is trying to find something to fulfill herself because what she was doing wasn't fulfilling. And in so doing, becomes obsessive with it and is totally not even paying attention to Jimmy's own pursuits. You know, she learns very late in the game that he's selling the cell phones. And
like 8 months later.
Yeah, and she learns very late. I mean, she realizes that he's completely shut off all emotion when it comes to Chuck, and she keeps suggesting to him, you need to go to therapy. And at one point he actually says, I'm going to call him. And then he turns around and tells her after, I forget what actually convinces him not to do that. But he says, I didn't actually call them and I'm not going to. It's clear that the show sets up these divergent paths. And I think in that divergence, she's just no longer aware that Jimmy is becoming not the Jimmy she knows. So that it does catch her off guard when she finally sees it. So I agree with each of the 3 points. I agree with Julianne in the sense that I think her motivation is a little muddy, but that's because it's self-focused. And I think she does still see good in Jimmy, like Hillary says, because she's too blind to the other stuff because of what Kyle's describing, which is she's trying to make her own mark, but she's doing it having picked up some of Jimmy's bad habits.
Yeah, there's just obviously going to be a big falling out there.
Yeah, that's pretty inevitable.
They're just building toward, that's going to be one of that will be probably the hump that breaks the camel's back officially. There's obviously other things, but that's the only place that thing can go. If we're going to start about, I don't know, are you going to ask about predictions?
Well, first I was also going to say we didn't cover the other big thing, which, like, Mike's side of the whole, like, we talked about Lalo and everything, but, like, Mike also reaches the same point Jimmy does, where Jimmy's past the point of return. He's Saul. Mike, in that last episode, does something that pretty much makes him Gus's man forever, and we should probably talk about that.
He's a murderer.
Well, he's killed people before, but this is the first time somebody who's, like, truly innocent.
I don't know, that guy, he broke all the rules. I don't know if he's innocent.
Yeah, on the sliding scale of Breaking Bad innocence, he's pretty innocent. But he definitely torpedoed a contract, so, Gus could have sued him if they weren't doing criminal activity. I wanted to like Mr. Ziegler, but I also found him frustrating, because I was like, damn it, man, you're the boss, and you got all these yahoos on your crew trying to do things, and, pissing off the strip club guy and whatever else.
He's just not up to the job at hand.
No, he's not.
You also have to remember, he's just an engineer. He's probably never worked with drug dealers before. He's so, like, naive about it all. He just thought everyone would just be mad and forgive him.
Right. That's what I was gonna say, too. Like, he totally was in over his head. He had no idea.
Don't pay for common sense.
What part of don't leave, don't you understand?
Yeah, right? Don't take an 8-month plus he didn't know it was plus, to be fair. But still, you're digging an underground tunnel. Why did you think that was going to happen?
Mike, we all know construction outline. Mike even said he says 6, so that's probably 8, 10 tops.
Yep, he does. That's like any construction timeline.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave them, like, interior trailers and armchairs and a bar.
It's pretty cozy, man.
Which is pretty crazy when you consider all this work that went into that, and then in a couple months, like, Walt just torpedoes it and then burns it all.
Right.
Damn it, Walt.
How could you tell us that's what happens?
Spoilers for Breaking Bad.
That's also the funny thing about watching the show. It's like, okay, Walt killed him, Walt killed him, Walt killed him, Walt kind of killed him. Like,
Walt
this
set
show
this
makes
guy
me
on
hate
the path
the character of Walt.
dying.
He's horrible.
Oh, there goes Nate. Let's talk about his entrepreneurship and all that other jazz.
Give somebody a shot. Somebody named Jesse Pinkman. Took him under his wing.
He's such a heartfelt person.
Hashtag Walter's a mensch. We get it.
I mean, we could be argued without Walt, like, with Walt, the entire drug cartel in New Mexico is completely wiped out.
Well, I think that's what's so striking to me about all of this is, like, you see all of these chess pieces moving, and at the end of it, you know that Walt, just like a freight train, is about to just barrel through and destroy all of these plans that everybody had.
It's taken decades to build, by the way, in PS. Like, it's been, like it's a family lineage, and then one day, a really smart high school teacher is like, what if I destroy it all?
Like a 30-year chess game is being played, and a toddler runs across the board.
Yes!
And then what's funny too is
He's really good at making that.
What's funny too is, like, Walt thinks he's so smart and so clever, but then when, like, you watch this show and you see all their different elaborate plans, like even Nacho with the pills and all that, like Walt and Jesse just, they look like toddlers, just like, they just blow through and destroy everything, and they think they're so smart because they survive.
Toddlers
really
and
smart
tidy whiteys.
Walt's smart at strategically getting out of a problem that is making a bigger problem worse. Like,
Yes.
Oh my god, I love these shows.
I did appreciate, though, like, the construction aspect of the lab, because it's something that's, obviously not explored or explained in Breaking Bad, like how this fully functional meth lab came to be under this laundromat. And
because when you're watching Breaking Bad, you're just like, this is so good and awesome. Like, who cares?
Of course, Gus has an underground layer.
Yeah, of course Gus does. Like, who else? I mean, of course. Why wouldn't he? He's Gus. Yeah.
And then another thing I love this season when you talk about is Howard Hamlin, the appearances we get from him, and like he just kills it. 'Cause, I mean, like we go from the first time we see him and he got just completely wrecked and destroyed, and we see him a year, 8 or 9 months later, and he has this whole little arc with Jimmy telling him off, and that actor was he's just so amazing, and I really hope in the future seasons we get a lot more Howard Hamlin. I hope they don't just like move past that.
Have him drift away. I think it'd be cool to bring him back at some key points or like just for advice and things. I think, yeah. Because he is, I mean, like we all said, you know, like he starts out kind of like he should be on Schitt's Creek. Because at the beginning, you're just like, he is the worst. And then by the end, it's like, oh my god, I love him.
Well, that's why it'll be super fun and ironic if Howard Hamlin gets to see the full picture of Saul Goodman. I'm looking forward to that.
Right.
Especially since like Saul Goodman is essentially a caricature of the persona Howard starts with.
Right.
Yes.
But I just love that because like that first episode of season 4 where we see him is the one where Kim's pushing him for therapy and Howard's like has insomnia, he's a mess, and he's like, oh, I'm going like 3 times a week.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that makes him say, I'm not calling the therapist.
Yeah, it's when he throws it in the toilet after he tries to give it to Howard. But I'm just in that scene though where, because like even though Howard and Chuck screwed him over and he doesn't have to, but he just tells Howard, like, people are counting on you, like, get it together. Like, I love that. And just those little moments with those characters for me are a lot of times even bigger than the action scenes.
Yeah. I feel so much for Howard, too, which is something that I never would have expected in the beginning of the show. But just thinking about how he, like...
the roadkill in all those relationships, man.
Right. And, like, he's... As far as he knew, he was following the right path in life, you know? He was... following in his father's footsteps and, you know, becoming the other Hamlin and McGill. And, you know, even when he was trying to suggest that Chuck retired, I mean, he did that with tried to do that with so much respect to him because he really did respect him. And then when you see where he ends up, you're just like, man, Howard, you didn't deserve that, man. I'm sorry. You're just trying to do your job as best as you could.
Yeah, especially when Chuck was willing to like go nuclear on Howard after Howard's been nothing but supportive of him.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It goes back to what Nick said earlier, that he's a fully fleshed out character, and even though he's a side character and in some ways a device, he's a device with actual dimension, and I think that you do come to care about him. Like, I cared about him. Like, I felt bad for him too by the end, and Chuck did him dirty. That was just not... Chuck is just... What an a-hole Chuck is. But then...
And we
Rest in peace.
Yeah,
R.I.P. We find out Howard didn't really even want to be part of...
No, he didn't.
Mm-mm. He's a tragic character. He's a side character, but he has just so much dimension, like his past. And like one of my favorite scenes too is when he's dispersing Chuck's will and Kim, and as far as he knows, he's just finishing it up, and then Kim has that monologue about like, how could you do this to Jimmy?
That was one of her best scenes.
Yeah, she was so good, like with the tears in her eyes,
Yeah.
and the way she delivered that and his reactions to it.
I totally forgot about that. But yeah, that scene was really good.
That was raw. She made that very raw and very like where you could see both sides of the story. There was no bad guy, no good guy, no winning, no losing. It was just what it was, but it was all the emotion like colliding.
Yes.
Good scene.
Reflection.
So do we have any predictions for the season 5? Saul going forward?
Saul is going forward.
It's Saul Goodman.
It's gonna be big because I mean it's really 5 and 6. 6 is the end of the run.
Yeah.
So I mean like
Breaking Bad world.
we're just gonna throw the hammer down.
That's what I'm looking forward to. The big
Animation or
careening
Saul
acceleration. Yeah. And, you know, there's rumors and speculations, I know this isn't potential 6, that Bryan Cranston's trying to weasel himself into that last season. That would be awesome. Should happen. But for season 5, no, because you've already watched it. There are people out there. I don't want to make predictions on a season that...
It's already out there.
It's already out there, yeah.
Yeah. I will say, though, that cold opening that took place during Breaking Bad in season 4.
Which one?
You don't remember that? It was the opening. It opens with him taking his money, him and Francesca breaking apart his office during the episode of Breaking Bad, Ozymandias, and him panicking and him calling the cleaner.
Yes, I remember that.
Yes.
Like, now that you've seen, when you're watching so many seasons of Jimmy, and then you see him as Saul Goodman, is so jarring.
Yes, that was. I liked that because that was like the first flash forward we got that was not a Cinnabon flash forward, but I immediately knew where we were.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
And I loved it too because you're talking about all the things I'm not picking up. That one at least gave me the chance to say, here's why all this stuff is important. So I was like, okay, I'm along for the ride.
Oh, and speaking of those flash forwards, do you think that's going anywhere? So we were seeing him freak out and crack. Do you think he's just being paranoid, or do you think he has legitimate reason to think he's been found out?
I think
the season ends with him and the cab driver from Albuquerque.
I think it's absolutely legitimate.
Yeah, he's being hunted.
Yeah, there's got to be some leftover people out there. Walt didn't get everybody.
Right, Walt didn't get everybody. And Law didn't get everybody,
right.
you know?
In Albuquerque, he was famous. He had ads everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, and he represented a lot of people.
And he's made a lot of enemies along the way. He makes little enemies. Like, he made an enemy of the corrections officer that was forcing him to do his community service.
That guy was a jerk, though. That guy had it coming.
I agree. I'm just saying,
Well, and since we didn't mention it, I love that episode because it shows all these regular straight people screwing him over, and then the criminal just giving him $700 and being happy for his service. Mm-hmm. No questions asked. Like right there, that justified him becoming Saul in my mind, because everyone else just screws him over.
In your mind, do you see yourself as Saul Goodman?
I'm not that charming, I wish.
Aww.
Oh my gosh.
I'm saying nothing, and good luck to you with the other one.
Season 6 essentially will be taking place during Breaking Bad, we're told, so that's pretty much the timeline we're on. The ticking clock, like Season 5, is the build-up.
And Season 6 is 13 episodes, where the rest of these seasons have been 10.
Yep.
Oh, I did not know.
How many did you say? I didn't hear.
13.
13, okay.
13.
And just for the listeners' future reference, we are breaking out Season 5.
Breaking Bad.
No. We're talking Season 5 of Better Call Saul separately from Season 6. So there will be a Season 5 episode and then a Season 6 episode, because that one I'm sure will be jam-packed with reflections.
Yeah, and it's going to be 2022 for Season 6 because it got delayed.
Oh, boy.
Yes. But, there's so much to talk about in Season 5, because, as we know at the end of the season, it ends with him becoming Saul Goodman.
Saul Goodman.
2022 is not that far away, guys.
It feels far away.
For me, when I watched Season 5 a year ago, 2019, yeah.
Yeah. Darn pandemics.
It's like waiting for Harry Potter's.
No, there's another show that took forever to come out.
Game of Thrones?
That's one.
Sherlock?
Yes, that's one. That's it! That's the one I was thinking of. Yes, that one.
Really, we could go down there's been a few, but...
That's the one I was thinking of,
enjoy this season. See, you went 8 years.
Talk about the gap between Season 9 of X-Files and Season 10.
That doesn't count.
How dare they?
That does not count shenanigans.
Breaking Bad.
Better Call Saul.
Alright. I'm going to recommend this show.
No, wait. We can't.
Kyle is moderating.
I'm just going to cut to the chase.
Was that one of your questions?
Typical wife.
We have to at least mention that Ethan Phillips played the judge.
Oh, yeah! We do. Or Nick will be unhappy. I was like, who is it? Oh my god, that's Neelix. I don't think I've seen him very often without the Neelix makeup.
I always think of him smoking in Trekkies. It's clearly it was a shooting day and they caught him on break. And he's in full Neelix makeup, having a cigarette, talking about a fan.
Yeah.
And so for a brief moment you're like, wait, does he always look like Neelix? Does he have some sort of problem that he has a Neelix face all the time?
Some sort of problem.
The kid in Mask, But Neelix.
The moral is, I know, he hasn't had a ton of work on Star Trek Voyager. That's the moral. But yes, Ethan Phillips did play the he was kind of a jerk too to Kim.
Yeah.
Get out of my courtroom or I'll make you do stuff and work and stuff. He was kind of don't stalk me, and then she pissed him off and it was fun. But still, yeah, I didn't realize that was him right away. And then I was like, oh yeah. But he's not my favorite Voyager character, to be discussed on our Star Trek.
I'm like, oh man, I'm glad we waited around for that. Okay, Breaking Bad.
Just mad.
Does anybody have any last thoughts? Anything we didn't cover?
So I was going to say I don't have a prediction, but I have a hope. I want to see more scenes with Jimmy and Mike together.
Yeah.
That's my hope.
More of those
they were pretty split.
Oh yeah,
Pretty
it was
split.
like two different shows.
Yeah.
Well, eventually they must collide, so...
Well, we know this.
Or reunite.
We just want more.
I just want
more.
Because I just really like them together.
We should be seeing. Have we seen any of the other person that helps Saul? I forget. He's
Bill Burr.
Yeah, Bill Burr.
He was busy filming The Mandalorian. He was supposed to be in this season with
What a
Saul.
waste.
He was going to be the other guy when they're doing the Piette.
Oh,
Nick has anti-Star Wars sentiments, okay?
I just don't know why it exists.
Do we not remember our Star Trek versus Star Wars Comic-Con panel?
Oh my god, bro.
Oh man, that is chef kiss. God.
Oh my god.
Can't we all just get along anyway?
Just don't know why it exists.
If you haven't listened to that panel, it's in our archive on the website. Go listen, it's spicy.
What? Never.
What else we got for this one, though?
So just watch Better Call Saul.
Were you gonna ask if we were...
Also, Bob Odenkirk. Shout out to my husband. Thanks.
Oh, you're actually asking him. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is how you do that. Say, Bob Odenkirk, if you're listening to our Better Call Saul episodes, please tweet at us, CPU Podcast. Kyle's not on Twitter, but we'll get the message to him. Kyle loves you, man. Tweet at us, CPU Podcast.
And I do. Everyone should.
He's a delight.
He is a delight. Bob Odenkirk is delightful, and he was apparently just in a movie that I've heard now 4 times. He was
Nobody.
Yeah.
Is it that one? Yeah.
Yes.
It was great. I just watched it.
So
now
for
I have
those
to
who can't
watch it.
see, I'm holding up the 4K because somebody sitting next to me had to run out and purchase it.
That's a physical copy of.
A movie.
How old-timey.
How old-timey. Kyle likes to have, he's very movie set. He likes to it's like people who need to hold the book in their hand.
Sure.
I'm like that too. I like a tangible thing.
Yeah.
I'm a record
I'm a record collector, I get it.
He has a literal book library and he has a movie library.
Do you have The Incredibles 2 on 4K because of Bob Odenkirk?
I don't like animated movies.
Oh, that's right.
Ooh, okay.
Way to touch a...
Anyway,
Friends, you're not supposed to tell them that. Don't tell them you don't like dogs.
that's all rabbit hole we don't need to get down. I think we covered everything, so I want
And a whole bunch of other crap.
Yeah. So I just want to thank everybody, Kylie, Hillary, Nate, Jules, and Nick. And I'll pass it back to Kylie for the end.
Doodle-doodle-doodle-doodle-doo.
Thanks, Kyle. I guess we're in Wayne's World now. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for moderating our Better Call Saul panel and this episode. And thanks to everybody for joining us. And since we're so thankful, it's time for some credits. Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, which is really another way of saying executively produced by me, Kylie Piette. My associate producers are Krista Pennington and Selene Rezmer. I edit this podcast, and our logo is by Rebecca Wallace. Our marketing graphic artist is Krista. Our theme song was written by Sarah Milbratz and sung by Sarah, Amy McDaniel, and Kels Rezmer. Kels played the keyboard, Ian McDonough played the bass, Christian Somerville played the guitar, and the whole shebang was engineered by Kyle Aspinall and Christian. We hail from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us, give us stars, provide comments, or review us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Amazon are just a few of the places you can find us, but we're also on YouTube. We have our website. Otherwise, feel free to tell us how we're doing, what we should add, subtract, keep, or toss. You know how it goes. And if you have suggestions for shows we might consider, contact us at our website where we have a guest book, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, our Facebook, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or wherever you get your podcasts. Though of course we had new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time, and always have new episodes coming down the pipe. Just listen to our intros. If you miss old episodes or want to know in general what shows we cover, just search for us. Find us wherever you do searchable things on the internet. Don't forget that exclamation point, or contact us via our website, our email, our social media accounts, and stay up on all the new events and episodes by our humble little podcast, Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point. Until the next time, the first 4 seasons of Better Call Saul are available to stream on Netflix, our unofficial non-sponsor. In the meantime, our Breaking Better panel will next reconvene very shortly, we hope in fact, to discuss Season 5 of Better Call Saul and Part 6 of this series very shortly. So until next time, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned! Bye-bye!